were dressed in white, and he said, see, they answered, all you didn't do is Adam and Eve. He said, you know who they are. This was an aborted idea. Remember that? They knew that in the prophecy. We didn't realize that the generation you were raising would be classified, or as I would say out of my mouth, first fruit is faithful but not true. The first fruit is faithful but not true. Talking, not realizing I'm talking about the children. That the first fruit is faithful but not true. So the children were the first generation of kids born to us. They'll say faithful. Some of them are still staunch Orthodox Muslims. But they're not true enough to follow us on into the path, right, of right now. So the elders they were talking to were the elite or the Elvidi speaking down to the Anunnaki, saying, you know who they are. They're the ones who have went through great tribulations and have washed themselves clean in the blood of the Lamb, which is symbolic of those people who were dirty. Because remember, you are from the seed of the disagreeable. Now, years ago, I explained to y'all about these webs. Right? I told y'all have webs, and that tells you in your bill if you want to give them water. That means if you're somewhere on the line, whether it's through breeding or cloning, there is the sea people inside of you. And the sea people are the Dragons, the Vulcans, and their other the name of their planet, right, was Maldiv, which is spelled M-A-L-D-E-K. That's the planet that Nibiru, the ship, bumped into on its normal route, on its original orbit. It had an original orbit of 25,920 years. They make a standard route. It's a large ship. It had 144,000 passengers, headed by 3-4 elders, right? Without searching the galaxy for other resources for their planet. They came out of alien planet called Lilith, right? Which is Lilith is the 8th planet having 2 moons, right? In a galaxy that has 19 planets. Right? And they oppose the ship needs these moons. That launched off, we call them mothership. It was tremendous. The biggest, as big as the planet Earth, the diameter. You follow that? And it was on its way out searching for more planets with life exploring. But in the universe instead of planet. And that route that was taken at that time was a very normal route where it was counterclockwise to the planets that were in this solar system at the time. They never intended to crash into it. They didn't have a problem until it passed by Neptune, right? And Neptune slowed because of electrical storms on it, right? And caused it to veer towards Neptune and trying to pull away from Neptune. It bumped into the planet, melded with what they call Vulcan, right? Where these sea creatures live. Okay? And broke off out of it. The planet itself launched off 4 fighter ships, right? Sometimes described as 4 pieces of the planet's satellites at Nibiru. You follow that? Meanwhile, planet Vulcan or melded went off further into outer space and became known as the lost planet. The beings on it, Dragons, lived underwater. It's called the serpent people. Follow that? They stood around 4 feet tall and that build, that web-hand web feet. Follow that? They had very, very advanced societies under the water. On the planet. Alright. These 4 ships launched at Nibiru with the intention of destroying them. However, Nibiru had 4 spheres built within this mothership and caught this planet in their foresphere and locked it and had it revolving right on an axis. And they refer to them as the north, east, south, and west winds. Alright? And then when Nibiru went on its orbit, but it was wobbling now because of the crash in the Vulcan or melded force damage So it launched all 3 ships to go back to Ilium and back to their planet to let them know that they could have danger. So they would launch out other craft to protect them. Within their fleet at this time, there were altogether 7 ships, and with the 3 going back, that would be 10. Follow that? These 7 ships broke up into 3 parts, 3 and 4 fleets. Remember, you had 4 that was picked up in the Balkans. And as this planet went on further into its path, it passed by Saturn. See that? And as it was moving, Saturn's planet Titan, it bumped into, or as they say in ancient times, into Sumu or Shumu. The ancient way to spell it is Shumu, right? It's called Ta-Netta in ancient Egypt, right? Same place. And that Shumu is the way that they say Sumu, or Shinar. And that means Shinar with flat plains. Remember that. All right? So, as it passed on by Saturn, it kissed off of Saturn, you follow? Or bumped into Titan if they have it, and then it was in a wobbly course. Okay? As it reached into the area near Canac, which is the name that Earth is called, which has to do with sea, and sea species, and this is the water planet, always known as the water planet. It has the most water, and the following is Neptune. It had a lot of water, that's why it was called Neptune. Right? This is Earth. Before it was Earth, it was like 2.5 to 3 times the size that it is today that you have now. Earth at 7,126 diameter, 24,896 miles circumference. Right? It wasn't that. It had that on twice, and then it had a diameter of the moon. Right? And you have your size of the planet. So these beings launched on into, places and wobbling. These were the supreme beings on the ship, or you call them Elohim in the scripture, or Anunnakis. This is taking place 25 billion years ago. Yeah, they yet it for something. Maybe 24 billion years ago. And this is taking place. So you know how long ago this was before the normal Homo sapiens came into existence as human. Right? It passed on through, and a whole Star Wars took place in the coming in the atmosphere, right? Where the planet Canac is having problems because there are 2 larger planets and 2 smaller planets on both sides of it. So the atmosphere is oriented, they always wobble. It's uncertain that it's pulled from 2 smaller planets from the sun, right? Which is Mercury and Venus. And then Mars and Jupiter, which is larger than the outside, of course, in balancing. So here is a big craft, also referred to as a planet, in this atmosphere. Since then, the cat launched from Canac 11 crafts, warship with Pat Nibiru. Alright? Remember, Nibiru had picked up and tracked 4 melded crafts or Vulcan crafts. And it was spinning right in its atmosphere as it went past Titan, as it's moving, these ships dead smack into Canac and caused Canac to break in half first. Another part of Canac, which is called the upper and lower part, the lower part of Canac, right, became what you call asteroids, and is moving in a counterclockwise, follow that, to your solar system's systematic motion, and it started to fold and bend. All right, the 11th class was immediately picked up by Nibiru and Leonard. They didn't have no attempt whatsoever on their attempt. But the following class, as that one class from Vulcan smashed into Canac and crashed in half, followed by another one that crashed into it, the whole straight through it, and as that planet was going to go out of orbit, they had a fear of what's called a star holocaust. If that planet is pulled out of orbit, all the other planets will be caught up sun and be blown towards it, which is called opposite the planet, the sun, way back then, and be blown up and destroyed. And the beings that crashed into it, these supreme beings, were responsible, and they were responsible for this crash. So follow that and must do something about it. So from the mobility, when I said 3 went back to a brick in the room, he had 4 of them locked on to the planet Payment, creating, as I told you before, what's called a tetrahedron planet with one crack. This locked in on the planet, that hole was going through it, it had total control of it, and energy from each one of these 4 cracks. And the door in the voice you see it, locked it and gave Earth atmosphere, bent it into its shape. It's more like oval in circles. The hole was penetrating in the center. You understand? The 11 class launch made the Vulcans, who were a part of the atmosphere, the last ship of it, the other one crashed, the last ship, assuming that they were being attacked by Payment on behalf of Missouri, not knowing that this is an error, immediately shot out a bulk of energy towards Payment. This was eventually trapped by the crash of Missouri and turned into what you know as ball lightning, for lack of another word, right? A large ball of energy, right? And sent and trapped right in the center, when it's into the belly of Payment and into writing, into human writing. And there they said a 600-mile sun. Follow that? And screamed it so that its light would go off out of the hole in the northern region and create what you refer to as coronals or the auroras or the sun flares that they see. That is the heat, so that the heat is not centered in air, but it burns out across. Inside, and the water that was in the center started seeping through, thus creating a very tropical environment, which became known as Shambhala, out of the time, various names that picked up a long time to this world center. So now this new planet, it has a diameter of 7,936 miles, and circumference of 24,000, cut the diameter in half, right? And you come down to radius, and radius tells you where that sun sits. The sun was not trapped in that atmosphere was set. And the L was responsible for this. The father was guilty, right, for the crash and made this their pet project. Thus 4 crashed the launch called in Revelation, 4 angels, 4 winds to hold the planet in performance there. To set off there to keep this planet from exploding. And I've been there from generation to generation, all the way back to the Revelation, trying to keep it. They had a fear that the opening and center of Earth with its own sun, of course, like I said, it called opposite one time, right? In other words, it was E-Shana, right? It come in contact with the outer sun, and that would cause overheat, so they put another sister city, a large craft or a sister city above the planet, right on the outside of your sphere, to protect it so when it holds it in that direction, like Christian city or ship is over, like you speak about in Revelation in the 21st chapter. It's over, and because the crystal cloud reflects the light away from the planet, and then it tilts the planet off its axis, and the straight axis, the 22-degree axis, tilting it toward the right, while there's more right-handed people on the planet Earth than what they should be, which is ambidextrous. And you tell you should have been ambidextrous, right? With a reflection on the planet Earth, where because of that, people look different on one side than on the other. You think when you're looking at yourself that you look the same. And if you took a picture of one side of your face and took a picture of the other side of your face, you'll see that because the left side of your body is weaker and less developed, the whole side of your face is. They say, well, your left foot is a little smaller, your left eye might be a little more closed. That is because that is obviously scientific error. For those who believe in God or Allah or Elohim or Adonai or Yahweh or whatever you use to believe that you made a mistake and made one side of your body larger than the other, one side of your body more agile or more, capable than the other, which is to say that you made a mistake. So the mistake came in when the planet was tilted off its axis, and you see that planet now on a 23-degree axis, right? You watch most people when they stop human beings, when they stop to lean and put all their weight on their right foot as opposed to left. Very rarely. So you do have people here who are left-handed because they're bred that way. Of course, humans were ambidextrous, but numbers 75 out of 100 people on the planet Earth are indeed right-handed as a result of this. That was done to keep the planet because it wobbles. Earth does wobble. Then when the planet was set in this atmosphere, remember that last cloud that I mentioned from the Vulcan sea features, right? It crashed down on the planet Earth. Remember, the Village went on to a new orbit. This new orbit became 3,600 miles, which made it 1 year to them. All right, besides themselves. So that ashes crashed down on the planet Earth, and they did live into the water. And thus, you get your story of your evolutionary man coming out of the water, being half built, and you are linked into that descendancy. And they were disagreeable people from the planet that melded. So you have more disagreeable people walking the planet. That's why you hold your hand up like this here in front of you and turn it around, you will see you have webs at the bottom of your finger. Right? If you realize that when you were in your womb, your mother, you was a tadpole, a fish, and you did have a tail, so at the end of your spinal column there is a flat bone. Whether you want to attribute to the toxins of the Europeans who have wider tendon because they're on a lesser evolutionary scale than you are, and therefore their tail is longer, your spinal column does curve to show that you once had a tail that came down, and you were once a sea creature because you could breathe underwater. And that's what they portrayed in that movie Abyss. And Abyss is another way of saying absolute, which is a whole state do something called hell. The Christians, the Muslims, and the so-called Jews say in hell there is a place beneath you where people burn, of course there's a sun there, and then if the screen of the sun is removed, people would burn. The reflection of the light from the sun out was curved. Of course, people down there would suffer and burn. But the ancient men who knew about it, the so-called religious men, taught about it and called it hell. When you say the word hell, H-E-L-L, all you got to do is put O on it, and you get a slang, oh hell. But oh hell in the ancient Syriac and Arabic, which is, let's say, the Hebrew language, means tabernacle or tent, oh hell. And that was considered a tabernacle down there where Shinti was, S-I-M, Shinti, T-I, Shinti, which is the laboratory where a lot of science experiments are taking place that were affected by what was taking place on planet Earth. And so once this was set up, the planet was put in place, and all this responsibility and the dolphins that fast down in here were living in the waters. We're talking about evolutionary time over millions of years and changing the command ships. You follow that? And life was started on planet Earth, a new form of life, because life that was here was burnt up by the crashes. So it goes into the earthquake, of course, it was water. You cut up the planet in half, and all the life form is dead. It was later on that, I think it's about 11 billion years ago, right, that the moon, which was an independent planet, broke off from it. It got its name Kingu, because the head of the fleet that launched out, which was 11 fleets from the planet, the K-Mat was called Kingu, right, and their moon became known as Kingu or Shishki. It appeared barren waste for present day and visited there by NASA. To this day, began to realize that life did live there once. All these things are going to come out. That our ancient descendants, the Sumu people or Sumu people, like I said, even known as Ka Netan, right, knew all of these facts. And now the present day scientists and astronomers and astrologists and solar biologists and all the different ologists that they want to learn and begin to realize that when they say that this planet, K-Mat, picked up the name T-K-I back then, and that K, when the Greeks got it, came into a G, and that I pronunciation became Geo, right? That's where they get geometry, geometrics, etc., all that applied to that ancient Sumu word Ki, our ancient descendants, which I said before was tied into the Egyptians. The Egyptians got it from the ancient Sumu people when when the son or grandson after the flood moved over into Egypt and brought over the culture that was once over on this side. That's why you'll find over among consumer people, they have states too. They have bull man, you have bull. They have the needles, objects are Cleopatra needles. The temples constructed the same way, architects constructed they baked stones and colored their temple in the ancient Babylon, which is where that place was at the time. Right? And you can see the temple was constructed the same way, pyramid-like fashion. So the knowledge was really greater in Sumer and older, and then went over into Egypt as the same people, and then Egypt became a mountain prophet, so Africa. So there's very different degrees of people. And now the Negroes go back so long ago, and this is way before prophecies of earth people came into existence. The prophecies came millions of years down the line. So no doubt there's a question about who are these people. They were talking about the fact that they longed for the day that the elders would collect their people off this planet. Because remember, years ago is when they actually started planning the breeding of a being called Adam. And they called him Adam because Adam, from the original language, Adama, meant earthling or of the ground, of the red soil, etc., right, to be workers for them. But they had been coming here for a long time. They called themselves the Anunnakis. And those who took Saturn as their home planet, because Saturn had a necklace around it, became known as the Anakis. Anakis means those of the neck. And now we're the ones who are of the disagreeable side of the planet. Each one took a planet as their symbol. And that's why in ancient Sumer writing, you'll find that all of the perfect planets actually get a name of people they call or refer to as their gods or descendants. Inky or Ur, and etc. Any questions? Which ship? Big? How big was it? It was bigger than the planet. It was as big as the planet Earth is now. It itself, the bill was never bumped in. It came out. It was the four satellites, and those ships back then, remember, they bumped in the key, one, and then the other put a hole straight through it. And the other one crashed down hard. Once it's happened, and they were completed silent, came back down and finished the win. But then, you come out very time between each time it was hit, and the planet was going through its own changes and trying to revive itself. By the time they came back in a few thousand, 600 years, bam, and hit a change. And that was the formation in the world. What made what? What made those satellites crash? They were caught, and I said, oh yeah, those satellite planets and Vulcan were caught by the Darius. The Darius ship had 4 units that had magnetic power working off, like I told you, such that he did science like he knew flying it done. And once it got caught in it, it started turning as a whirlwind. Right? And those ships are moving. We became magnetic energy, which helped to create the force field around the building. But it's shocking. The thing is, the building was navigating itself wobbly after bumping into Meldic or Vulcan, and then was being drawn into the solar system. When it kicks off of Saturn, it sends off again and staring in, it never hit. The building never really hit. It was the satellites that picked up. So they can navigate for itself, but to navigate within the range between the force field and the actual slab of the building in that cycle of energy, there were those 4 Vulcan ships or Meldic ships. And they're the ones that crashed into the Earth. They will continue on with its orbit outside the Earth. It was a very common visit here. So you thought of Mars had life, Jupiter had life, it's like the planet had life on here. Yeah. These ships went back to this, right? Eventually heard in the conflict that, of course, the communication was practical. It was going on, but the commander of the fleet convinced them that everything was under control. They made their cycle, and they would be caught within this solar system, moving in and out of it counterclockwise. And their greatest fear was the asteroid belt that was created in between Mercury, Venus, Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. In between there was an alphabet of asteroids moving in the opposite direction. And that was the biggest fear, because that was created by that breaking off pieces, the lower part of his head, playmaker. And as they could keep that under control, they would have no problem. So ship was sent to protect his solar system. the message came back that the bear was no longer in danger, was under control, right? And the aggressors, the 11 aggressors that came out from Enoch was eliminated, and the 4 ships of the Marduk or the Vulcans was eliminated, and one ship was crashed down was not their concern. They crashed down went into the water, and they germinated in the water. And of course, these were hurricanes. Eventually, see ancient primitive man and see the body coming out of the water and coming on land, all kind of algae and fungi, all kind of names. The atmosphere was conducive. But that was way after. It was set all the way after the fall, the ice age, and land, like that other story about man, the atmosphere again with ammonia, etc. That's another story of another kind of life form. That life form is in the water because of that crash down. And they do some mathematics now. They do mathematics and they basically mathematics on the distance of the sun and certain other formulas, and it proves by 0, 2, 3, 4, right, times 2, 3, 4, the position of the sun, that there was definitely another planet that lived within the solar system and has something to do with asteroids, right? And that is the planet Null or Vulcan and Coal and present-day television. The bowl of Genesis 9 that the Elohim made a covenant with Noah with was a mothership. They said you'll place the bowl, Christmas tree, light it, and give off a rainbow effect because it hit the crystal. If you look to a Christmas tree, they will place a bowl in the sky as a covenant with you because you are perfect in your generation and that you are a new Adam. For all times of your generation, that bowl was the mothership. The mother plane of Elijah Muhammad called it. Also called redeeming, commanded by the son of Enki, Murdoch. That was this one. That was this redeeming. There was many ships called Nibiru, just like the United States has ships, and they call it the USA 412, let's say. And that is the United States of America 412. You understand that? Nibiru is a star fleet, a large ship that launches from Risk. Risk is the 8th planet in a 3-sun galaxy called Ilium. The Quran refers to it as Ilium. The Torah refers to the deity over it as El Ilium. And even thou, a descendant from Anu, named in the sun Ilium or Ilium, and he became known as El. If you write the name Babylon, you see that Babylon really spells Babylon.
Check it out, bro. Yeah.
Y-L-O-N. Now, you have heard over the years, Bab means Bab of L, and of course, the word Babel. Go on to L or confusion, right? But today, on this September the 8th, 1993, is the first time you're going to hear it being used this way. The door to Ilium, the door to the highest. But in due time, people will start to pick it up the way they did the word history and reverse the word God backwards with the word God and say they came up here, it didn't come from me. All right? So when it got down to earth, it was in your Bible, as Yahweh came down to see what they were doing, he found out that instead of Enki doing what his father and the people of the galaxy called Elohim or Anunnaki is the ancient word for earth. Ki. But it doesn't mean earth, it means G-O, which is G-E-O. Geo. Where you get geology, geography, geometry, This is an ancient word from the ancient Sulu, S-U-M-E-R. Not S-U-M-M-U-R-O-A-R, Sumar. And this is not Mecca. That was way after when those Jews came down to Mecca, 200 of them. This is not Mecca. They came down, poured it right into the Arabian Sea. They crashed down and set up the land E-re-doom, which is where you get the word Oz for earth, and it means desert. It's crashed down the Arabian Sea, the point where E-rock is right now, called into Babylon, the doorway to Eliud. side of the window, I know about it. Negro travel north, south, east, west. Could not, by continuously chemical speeding up electrical, a magnet is not something in the metal, it's something the metal can conduct magnetism through 0.19.5 angular energy and speed of light.
That's right, brother. Prove it true.
Would not be able to not penetrate. So it was caught on a magnetic pull because the deal with the ship set up a force field locked. And now these tremendous, massive ships that were set out to attack the area were caught in this sphere. Sounded along with it. Communication was trying to be set up from the building to the ships. But in going, there was an accident. But because it bounced off of it and damaged the armor, in the case of that, then it was wobbling. As it moved on, past Saturn, they bumped into the planet of Saturn, Titan. That's the planet of Saturn called Titan. And caused a necklace to be formed around Saturn. A necklace. The ring of Saturn is not a ring, it is a massive amount of small planets. This was the real. So I'm teaching you right now. This was not. Once it started revolving, crashed, and smashed into mega and destroyed the 7 moons of Saturn. The devil claimed this planet as his own Saturn. And then it went on. I'll keep on going as long as you keep on right. And as it moved on, reached more planets, all of it now. is in the direction with the sun, what will happen? Blow it up. So they let go and put a reflecting mirror from the ship, and the ship is sent upwards in crystal sea. Malachi wrote the Muslim, and sits right over the opposite pole from where the Tetrahedron sign pulls on this side, to the opposite side. And it sits there. And then these 4 ships go back, further out, and the planet will sink. Now ready to be honored again. It's now ready for various lifetimes. But it's about transporting life from here to practical. To be in air, to not have any intelligence, and it will not be able to sustain the planet. You have to learn science, because your whole body is going to deplete. The atmosphere is going to go bad. The sun will get closer, but it will now satellite orbit, not only satellite orbit. They set the planet up, so they started transporting things here. The Neptune ships is what the third we found crab thing. The last ship, or what we call the West Wing, these beings here were walking, got picked up by Miriam and educated by them to be informed. So they showed them screens of the flight and how it happened, how it was not done intentionally. You follow that? And these beings were transported here to Earth and were put in the seeds here on this beautiful planet. So written villages. You follow that? And they live in the seeds here. Descendancy. Other black beings came, planted germs in the water. That would eventually become amoebas and algae, but kind of set once the fire stopped. How did it all happen, set? Well, it goes back a little further. It goes back to the circle and the square. When the circle in the square, you get the hydrogen and the helium. You take the circle, cut it into 4 pieces of pie, rip 1 piece of pie, name this piece, the upper right-hand piece when you face it, and it becomes the bottom left-hand side. That's this. Move it down. See it? Vice versa. Hydrogen. In the opposite direction, helium. H1, He. What is helium? Substance, when it burns, it gives off hydrogen. This was long before this thing. This happened 93 billion years ago, when the sun actually was created. That's how it is with the sun. When on time, 4 billion years. It started raising the sun. So you know that the tablets, the 7 tablets of the lunar idiots were put together about the birth of those first years. How to read it, how to decipher it, they don't know. That's why. Because 7 tablets represent the opening of the 7 seals of the end. I told people that the 7 seals were the 7 scriptures, but the 7 scriptures